The digital clock on the Sub-Zero refrigerator, an investment I had spent 3 months agonizing over, selecting only the purest stainless steel finish, ticked to 9 a.m., precisely the moment I allocated for reviewing the master wedding binder. My breakfast nook, overlooking the sprawling, manicured lawns of our Greenwich estate, was bathed in the crisp, expensive light of a Connecticut October morning. Everything was perfect, as I demanded everything in my life to be. I was Eleanor Vance, and I was in control. I opened the pristine, cream-colored binder. On the cover, embossed in subtle gold lettering, were the words, Julian and Olivia, the union. Julian, my only son, the heir to the Vance legacy at the investment bank, was finally, mercifully, getting married. Olivia was the daughter of Senator Harrington, a union so politically and socially advantageous, it was almost too beautiful to be true. It was the crowning achievement of my social life. For the past 7 months, I had been orchestrating their wedding, a process I referred to internally as the Grand Project. It was not merely an event, it was a state function disguised as a celebration of love. The date was set for next June, providing exactly 8 months for the flawless execution of my plans, covering everything from the 3-course tasting menu to the security detail required for the visiting dignitaries. The first section of the binder, Guests and Seating, contained the 500 potential invitations, color-coded by social importance, political leverage, and historical family standing. The second, Venues, detailed my top 3 choices. The Plaza in New York, a historic estate in Newport, Rhode Island, or, my personal favorite, a meticulously restored Gilded Age mansion right here in Greenwich, which offered unparalleled privacy and prestige. I had already settled on the Gilded Age mansion, the Ashworth estate. It was simply the only acceptable choice, perfectly aligning with the Vance family's stature. Julian, bless his pragmatic heart, had simply nodded when I presented him with the cost estimates and the historical significance of the ballroom. He was a man who understood value, even if his appreciation for aesthetic grandeur was sometimes lacking. Today was the day I intended to set the venue visit in stone. I needed Julian's sign-off before I could finalize the catering contracts with Chef Antoine, a man who charged more per plate than some families paid for a semester of college, but whose reputation was worth every single cent. My perfectly chilled glass of cucumber water, nestled on a linen coaster, felt reassuringly cool in my hand. It was time to call my successful, well-adjusted son. I pulled out my phone, a slim, elegant device housed in a leather case I had commissioned in Milan. Julian answered on the second ring, his voice bright and slightly breathless, typical of a man tackling the chaos of Wall Street before 9:30. Mom, good morning. What's up? I'm just walking into the office. Good morning, darling. Don't worry, this will only take a moment. I just need to firm up a date for the Ashworth estate visit, I said, my tone deliberately light and authoritative, allowing no room for negotiation. I'm looking at either the 15th or the 22nd. I told Olivia we'd aim for the 15th, but I need to make sure your calendar is clear. They have a non-negotiable deadline for booking next week, Julian. There was a pause on the line, a hesitation that wasn't about conflicting board meetings or portfolio reviews. It was a pause that felt strangely hollow, like stepping onto a missing stair. I frowned, already sensing a shift in the meticulous timeline I had constructed. Julian? Did you hear me? The 15th. It's a Saturday, so your schedule should be flexible. His sigh, when it came, was long and entirely too casual. It was the sound of a man trying to talk down a dramatic relative, not a son collaborating on the event of the season. Mom, I appreciate all the work you've put into this. Seriously. The binders, the catering research, the 3-ring circus of it all. He trailed off, the compliment feeling more like a preface to an insult. What are you talking about, Julian? It's hardly a circus. It's an investment in your future and Olivia's family connection. I corrected him sharply, tapping my pen impatiently against the Ashworth brochure. Just tell me which date works. The 15th or the 22nd. Then came the words, delivered with a calm, almost apologetic finality that completely belied the thermonuclear shock they induced. He spoke them as if he were simply cancelling a reservation for dinner. "Mom, you can stop planning. We don't need the Ashworth estate." My throat tightened. My fingers went numb, freezing the pen mid-tap. "Stop planning? Julian, you're being absurd. We are 8 months out. You cannot possibly afford to stop the momentum now. The Harringtons expect this." I tried to laugh, a brittle, high-pitched sound that didn't reach my eyes. "What are you trying to do? Give your mother a heart attack?" He sighed again, and this time, the exasperation was clear. He was ready to detach. "Chloe and I got married yesterday, Mom. We did it at the City Hall, just us and 2 friends. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but we knew you'd react exactly like this." The world, my beautiful, ordered world of stainless steel and linen coasters, tilted sideways. I stared blankly at the words Julian and Olivia on the binder cover. Chloe? Who in God's name was Chloe? And married yesterday? I felt a hot, dizzying flush crawl from my neck up to my hairline. The cucumber water suddenly tasted like ash. "Chloe," I whispered, the name unfamiliar and utterly wrong on my tongue. "What do you mean, Chloe? You are engaged to Olivia. Olivia Harrington. And you cannot get married without a dress, without a seating chart, without me. This is some kind of tasteless joke, Julian." My voice was shaking now, the carefully maintained composure cracking like delicate porcelain. "It's not a joke. We've been together for 6 months. We love each other. We got married quietly. And we did it for us, not for the seating chart," he said, the defensive edge in his voice sharpening. "I'll bring her by tonight. But yes, Mom. It's done. We are married. To each other. And her name is Chloe." I hung up without another word, not because I was being dramatic, but because my perfectly composed brain had momentarily failed to produce the necessary oxygen required for a coherent scream. My hand, trembling violently, went to the cool, cream binder. I ripped the cover, tearing the gold-embossed Julian and Olivia, the union straight down the middle. My grand project, the pinnacle of my social career, was an utter, humiliating failure, and I hadn't even known the name of the woman who destroyed it until 30 seconds ago. Chloe. I had to look up that name. I had to know what kind of woman could dismantle 8 months of meticulous planning with a single, unscheduled trip to a municipal office. The shock was paralyzing, but beneath it, a cold, hard ember of fury began to glow. This was not the end of the story. It was merely the opening salvo in a war for my son's life, a war I hadn't even realized I was fighting. I slammed the remnants of the binder shut. The silence in the breakfast nook was deafening, amplified by the ticking of the expensive clock, which now seemed to mock my shattered sense of time and order. I needed a moment to recategorize my entire reality, to shift from being the mother of the groom to the mother-in-law of a complete, unknown quantity, a woman named Chloe who had committed the ultimate social offense. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, and I certainly didn't break anything. My self-control was far too expensive for such dramatics. Instead, I picked up the phone again, my hand still shaking, and called Julian back. "Cancel your day," I commanded, my voice low and brittle, like winter ice. "I don't care what meetings you have or what deals you're closing. You are coming home, immediately. We need to discuss the reality of this situation." He tried to argue, mentioning the sheer impossibility of leaving the trading floor during the morning rush, but I cut him off. "Julian," I warned, drawing his full name out, a tone he hadn't heard since he was 12 and tried to sneak out past curfew. "If you do not get in a cab right now, I will call your father, and your father will call your managing partner. You have exactly 4 to 5 minutes. And bring the documentation." 4 to 5 minutes later, precisely as ordered, Julian's black sedan pulled up the gravel driveway. I met him in the main dining room, not the casual breakfast nook. This room, with its 20-foot ceilings and the ancestral oil portrait staring down from the walls, was reserved for ceremonies, pronouncements, and the most serious of family discussions. The lighting was dimmed, and the air was heavy with unspoken judgment. I had instructed our housekeeper, Maria, to prepare a simple, yet intensely formal brunch. There were silver chafing dishes filled with eggs Benedict, Julian's favorite, but the air of solemnity and accusation was so thick it would curdle milk. I sat at the head of the impossibly long mahogany table, dressed in a sharp, tailored navy suit, using the structure of my clothing as psychological armor. Julian walked in, looking infuriatingly handsome in his Savile Row suit, but carrying an almost unsettling lightness about him. He had the calm, self-satisfied air of a man who had just pulled off a brilliant, risky trade. He greeted me with a peck on the cheek, which I received with the stony coldness one usually reserves for tax audits. "Mom, this is unnecessary drama," he said, pulling out a chair about halfway down the table, attempting to minimize the confrontation by maximizing the distance between us. I came. "Now, can we discuss this like adults? And can you please refrain from using the dining room for what should be a conversation in the library?" "The library is for reading, Julian. This is for matters of consequence," I retorted, my hands folded neatly on the table. "And unnecessary drama is what happens when you dismantle a multi-million-dollar social and financial contract with the Harringtons and your mother's credibility via a poorly timed phone call. Now, sit down and eat your eggs. You look entirely too relaxed for someone who has just committed social suicide." He sat down, but didn't touch the food. He simply looked at me, his eyes clear and remarkably free of guilt. This bothered me more than any amount of pleading or apologizing would have. He genuinely believed he had done nothing wrong. "I have the marriage certificate, if you want to see it," he offered, pulling a thick envelope from his briefcase. "It's signed, sealed, and legally binding. We are married, Mom. Chloe is my wife." The name Chloe still felt foreign, a cheap, synthetic sound compared to the rich, resonant Olivia. "I don't need the documentation, I need the timeline. 6 months? You were actively engaged to Olivia when you met this Chloe." I pushed the question across the table like a challenge. "Did you know that she would replace Olivia? Was this a calculated, cruel humiliation? Because that's what it feels like to me, Julian." Julian leaned forward, dropping his voice to a level of seriousness that finally matched the room. "No. I met Chloe at a volunteer event in the city. We became friends. I realized, quickly, that I was happier talking to her for an hour than I was planning my entire life with Olivia. I broke things off with Olivia a month ago, quietly and respectfully. I gave her back the ring, which, by the way, was another investment you insisted on, not my choice." The mention of the ring, a flawless 3-carat diamond I had personally selected, was a direct strike. That was a necessary symbol of the life you were meant to lead. And what life are you leading now? A life of scandal? A life of secrecy? What does her family do? Where is she from? I need to know the damage report, Julian. How do I mitigate this? "There is no damage report, Mom. There is just joy," Julian insisted, his calm demeanor starting to show the first cracks of frustration. "Her family is wonderful, but they don't have titles or a trust fund. She's from upstate New York, and she works at a library and makes art. And we eloped because we wanted a marriage, not a performance. We didn't want the months of scrutiny, the seating chart arguments, or the endless expectations." His words, particularly "not a performance," were a direct and vicious stab at my entire existence. I felt my face tighten. I swallowed hard, trying to regain my breath and my strategy. I realized he wasn't just rejecting the wedding, he was rejecting me. Expectations are the foundation of this family, Julian. Without them, we are nothing more than common people with a large bank account, I articulated, leaning into the formality of the moment. And now, thanks to your impulsive, inexplicable choice, I have to call Senator Harrington and explain why his daughter's future has been sacrificed for some whim from a library in upstate New York. Julian stood up, finally, the chair scraping against the marble floor. You don't have to explain anything, Mom. You just have to be happy for your son. And you have to meet her. I'm bringing Chloe here tonight at 7. Please, for me, just try to be a mother, not a social coordinator. I'll see you at 7. He didn't wait for a response, simply turned on his heel, and walked out of the room, leaving the untouched Eggs Benedict and the ripped binder cover as silent evidence of the disaster. I sat there for a long time, the cold silver of the cutlery reflecting my distorted face. 7 o'clock. Tonight, I would meet the woman who had stolen my son's obedience and destroyed my masterpiece. I might have lost the battle for the wedding, but the war for the Vance name and Julian's soul had only just begun. I had exactly 10 hours to gather intelligence, compose my battle plan, and ensure I looked absolutely flawless when the mystery woman walked through my door. The waiting was the worst part. I spent the afternoon not in frantic cleaning, the house was always spotless, but in forensic social analysis. I used every connection I had, every low-level private investigator, every resource available to Eleanor Vance, to dig up everything I could on a Chloe Hayes from upstate New York. The results, or rather, the lack thereof, were intensely frustrating. She had no significant social media footprint. No society pages mentioned her name. Her father was a retired school administrator, her mother, a former nurse. Her financial history was spotless but threadbare. She had a degree in literature and worked part-time at a local library while maintaining a small, barely profitable pottery studio. She was, in short, a complete and total nonentity. She was nothing, and therefore, she was everything I feared. At 6:30 p.m., I descended the grand, curved staircase, every step precisely measured. I was wearing a vintage Chanel suit, a statement piece that communicated wealth, tradition, and an unshakable sense of historical importance. I positioned myself in the living room, a room dominated by neoclassical marble and museum-quality art, ensuring I was framed by the most imposing backdrop possible. The doorbell rang precisely at 7 p.m. I inhaled slowly, composing my features into an expression of controlled, highly polite curiosity. The kind of look one gives an unexpected Jehovah's Witness or a questionable piece of abstract art. Maria ushered them in, and for the first time, I saw the woman who had ruined my life. Chloe Hayes was unremarkable. She was of average height, with warm, brown hair pulled back in a loose, slightly messy ponytail, and she wore a simple, dark green dress that looked like it had been bought off a rack, not designed. There were no diamonds, no recognizable designer labels, and her makeup was minimal, emphasizing her clear, direct eyes. She didn't look malicious or conniving, she looked genuinely sweet and slightly nervous. Julian, who stood beside her, beamed. He looked utterly smitten, completely blind to the fact that his wife was wearing flats in my marble foyer. "Mom, this is Chloe," he announced, the pride in his voice grating on my nerves. "Chloe, this is my mother, Eleanor." Chloe stepped forward, her hand extended in a firm, confident handshake that was entirely too friendly for a first meeting. "Mrs. Vance, it's a pleasure to finally meet you," she said, her voice soft but steady. She called me Mrs. Vance, a formal address I appreciated, but the total absence of awe in her eyes was unnerving. She wasn't intimidated by the 20-foot ceilings or the 18th century tapestries. "Chloe," I replied, allowing her name to hang in the air, testing its texture. I forced a small, cool smile. "Julian seems to be under the impression that you two are married. Did he, perhaps, forget to mention the year of intensive planning that usually precedes such an assumption?" Chloe's slight nervousness vanished, replaced by an easy, natural composure. She chuckled, a genuine, unaffected sound. "I believe he mentioned that you had quite a spectacular event planned, Mrs. Vance." We apologize for derailing the effort. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision. We were filling out forms for a shared health plan and just decided to make it official right then and there. I bristled. A health plan? You framed your nuptials as a bureaucratic necessity for an insurance policy. The sheer lack of romance, the mundane practicality of it all, was an absolute insult to the institution of marriage itself, or at least, the institution as I understood it. Well, we were already filling out the paperwork, and City Hall was right next door, Chloe explained with a shrug, turning to Julian with a loving glance. Julian returned the look, and the sheer, unfiltered happiness passing between them felt like a painful physical blow. I gestured toward the imposing fireplace. Please, sit. Julian has given me the most bewildering summary, but there are certain facts I need to ascertain. I need to understand the why of this radical departure from all sense and tradition. Why the secrecy? Why the disrespect? There was no disrespect intended, Mrs. Vance, Chloe asserted, sitting down neatly on the edge of the velvet sofa, her posture perfect, surprisingly. We knew, however, that you had a very specific vision for Julian's future, one that involved a guest list of 500 and a very expensive band. That's just not us. We wanted the marriage to be about commitment, not commerce. Commitment is commerce, dear. I corrected her, my tone laced with condescension. It is an arrangement of families, assets, and reputations. And you, Chloe, seem to have entirely overlooked the assets part. I have spent decades building a legacy, a structure for Julian to inherit, and your impulsiveness threatens to destabilize it. Julian finally intervened, his hand resting protectively on Chloe's shoulder. Mom, stop. You need to stop treating my wife like a variable in your portfolio. She is not some social experiment. I ignored him, fixing my gaze on Chloe. Tell me, Chloe, why did you encourage an elopement? Why strip Julian of his birthright, the wedding of the year, and replace it with a trip to City Hall? Was it fear of the scrutiny? Or a deeper insecurity about meeting the expectations of a family like ours? This was the crux of my theory. She was running from inadequacy. Chloe met my challenging look head-on, her eyes calm and honest. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I didn't encourage it, Mrs. Vance. We decided it together. And no, I wasn't running from your expectations. I just didn't want to live up to them. Julian is a wonderful man, and I love him very much. We got married because we just wanted to be married, right now, today. We wanted to start our life, not plan an event. Her simple, profound honesty, the declaration that she valued life over event planning, struck me to the core. It was a casual, devastating dismissal of my entire life's work. She didn't view my world as something to aspire to, but as something to actively avoid. It was infuriating, yet utterly authentic. This woman wasn't a gold digger or a manipulator, she was simply an incompatible force of nature, and that made her infinitely more dangerous. The silence that followed was charged with the full weight of the clash. Julian smiled, evidently pleased with his wife's brave defense. I, however, had seen enough. This was not a girl I could easily manage or mold. I stood up, indicating the meeting was over. Very well, Chloe. I believe I have a clearer picture now, I stated, my voice resuming its chilly neutrality. I won't ask you to leave Julian, but I will not allow this rash decision to damage the Vance name. You are welcome here, as Julian's wife, but understand this, you will be watched. And you will find that living a simple, ambitious life is much harder when the Vance expectations follow you home. Julian frowned, preparing to object, but Chloe placed a calming hand on his arm. We understand, Mrs. Vance, she said politely, rising gracefully. But you might find that my expectations for Julian are even higher than yours. They just happen to be about his happiness, not his seating arrangement. She offered one last, small, unsettlingly genuine smile before Julian guided her out, leaving me alone in the oppressive silence of my beautiful, useless room. The war had officially commenced, and the first skirmish had ended in a troubling draw. The next morning, the shock had solidified into a cold, tactical resolve. Julian's emergency brunch and the brief, unnerving encounter with Chloe had confirmed my worst fears. My daughter-in-law was the complete and total antithesis of everything the Vance legacy stood for. She was unpolished, unpretentious, and, most damningly, utterly uninterested in the social hierarchy that defined our world. This, I decided, was unacceptable. My first task was to fully grasp the extent of the damage to my social standing. I spent the morning fielding carefully worded calls from friends and acquaintances. "Eleanor, darling, I heard the most confusing rumor about Julian and Olivia. Eleanor, is it true Julian has eloped?" I managed the crisis with clinical precision, deploying carefully crafted lies about a sudden, mutual decision and Julian's desire for a quiet life, all the while swallowing the bitter pill of public humiliation. I realized that to neutralize Chloe, I couldn't attack her outright. I had to assimilate her. I had to take the raw, unsophisticated clay and sculpt her into a Vance wife. The grand project was dead, but the grand resculpting project was now underway. My first step was a preemptive strike: wardrobe and aesthetic. I called Julian and commanded him to bring Chloe over for a welcome lunch the following Saturday. This time, I chose the smaller, less formal conservatory, a room filled with light and delicate orchids, signaling a facade of warmth. I also took the liberty of contacting a personal shopper at Bergdorf Goodman and a top stylist, preparing a meticulously curated wardrobe that was to be presented as a gift. When Julian and Chloe arrived, I noted, with a sharp intake of breath, that Chloe's presentation hadn't improved. She wore faded jeans, a soft, oversized sweater, and carried a worn leather tote bag that looked entirely too lived in. Her hair was still pulled back casually, and she wore a single, delicate silver necklace, clearly not an heirloom. "Chloe, dear, how lovely to see you," I greeted her, managing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Julian, why don't you join your father in the study? We need to discuss some financial matters. Chloe and I will have a moment alone before lunch." Julian looked hesitant, sensing the trap, but Chloe squeezed his hand and gave him an encouraging nod. "Go ahead, Jules. I'm sure your mother and I have plenty to talk about," she said, her easy acceptance making my plan feel slightly less manipulative. Once Julian was gone, I led Chloe to the conservatory. Lunch was light, a cucumber and mint consommé, perfect for maintaining a slender silhouette. I then launched my mission, starting with the gift. I had the stylist bring in racks of clothing, tailored dresses, structured coats, and heels that could only be walked in by a woman with perfect posture. "Chloe, I want to be honest," I began, picking up a stunning black Prada sheath dress. "Now that you are Julian's wife, you represent the Vance name. And frankly, the Vance name needs to be represented with a certain level of distinction. This is a small collection I put together for you. A starting point." Chloe looked from the clothes rack to me, her expression a mixture of confusion and gentle amusement. "Mrs. Vance, that's incredibly generous, but I really don't need new clothes. I like my sweater. It's comfortable." "Comfort is for weekends at the cottage, dear, not for representing a $3 billion investment firm," I countered smoothly. "The right clothing is armor. It is a tool. You must understand that in Julian's world, every detail, from the hemline to the handbag, communicates your worth and your stability. We need to upgrade your armor." I tried to demonstrate, holding up the Prada dress. This tells people you are serious, sophisticated, and successful. Your sweater tells people you are going to the grocery store." Chloe shook her head slowly. "I appreciate the lesson, truly. But I am an artist and a librarian. When I'm at the library, I need to be able to bend and shelve books without worrying about a hemline. When I'm in my studio, I need to be able to wipe clay off my pants. I don't want armor, Mrs. Vance. I want clothes that let me live. I felt a surge of exasperation. But you're Julian's wife now. You won't be shelving books forever. You'll be attending charity galas, board dinners, and political fundraisers. You have to adapt. It is your duty to your husband. My duty to Julian is to be happy and supportive, and to be myself, Chloe replied, her tone firming slightly, but remaining polite. If he wanted a wife who looked like she stepped out of a magazine, he would have married Olivia. He married me because I don't care about the hemline or the handbag. I pressed on, switching tactics. Then let's discuss conversation. The Vance social circle requires finesse. We talk about global markets, cultural philanthropy, and European travel. No one discusses, forgive me, pottery or library science. You need to sound the part, Chloe. You need to read The Economist and practice summarizing the quarterly reports. Chloe took a careful sip of her consommé, met my gaze, and offered a devastatingly simple answer. I enjoy reading The Economist, actually. But I also enjoy talking about old books and how communities are built around them. I'm happy to discuss any topic, Mrs. Vance, but I will not pretend to be interested in something I'm not. People appreciate authenticity more than polished clichés. The session was a complete failure. Not only did she politely reject every piece of expensive clothing, but she also subtly implied that my entire social world was superficial and insincere. She wasn't fighting back, she was simply refusing to play the game, and that made her immovable. As Julian and Chloe left, Julian looking happier than ever, I felt a deep, chilling sense of defeat. I looked at the rack of immaculate clothes and the expensive, useless shoes. I had tried to teach her the rules of my world, and she had responded by saying her world had better, simpler, and more fulfilling rules. I had just met the antithesis of tradition, and I realized, with a heavy heart, that the battle for assimilation was lost before it had even truly begun. She was not a project, she was a force of nature. The failure of the resculpting project left me reeling. I retreated to my study, a room designed to intimidate, but which now felt like a lonely, ornate cage. Julian had been the last, perfect piece of my carefully constructed life. The heir, the businessman, the perfect husband-to-be for the perfect political bride. Now, he had chosen a simple librarian, and my grand tapestry was unraveling. I found myself staring out the window at the vast, empty lawn, reflecting not on Julian, but on myself. Julian was happier than I had ever seen him. He laughed more easily, his eyes were lighter, and he carried himself without the perpetual tension that the family business had burdened him with. He was thriving in a way he never had while following my script. This observation was profoundly unsettling. It forced me to confront a question I had successfully buried for decades. Was my script wrong? I had married Julian's father, Robert, not for love, but for structure, security, and the social elevation I craved after growing up in a middle-class family with far too much chaos. I had built a fortress of wealth and expectation, but I lived inside it alone. My own wedding to Robert, 28 years ago, had been a 3-day spectacle, a military operation of social climbing. I remembered the exquisite dress, the hundreds of influential guests, the dazzling press coverage. But I realized, with a sudden, sharp pang of clarity, that I barely remembered Robert's face when he said, "I do." I remembered the lighting, the flowers, the headlines. The feeling of love was absent. I saw Julian, through the lens of my own unlived life, finally claiming the authentic happiness I had traded for social status. And because I lacked that deep, genuine connection, I resented Chloe for possessing it so effortlessly. My frustration wasn't about the Vance name, it was about the vacuum in my own soul, a void Chloe seemed to fill in Julian without any effort at all. I decided, almost desperately, that I couldn't let my fantasy die completely. I still had my friends, my social obligations, and my reputation to salvage. The least I could do was try to give Julian and Chloe the reception that I believed they deserved, even if they hadn't asked for it. It would be my last act of control, rebranded as generosity. I called Julian and laid out my plan. I am hosting a small, intimate gathering. No more than 100 of our most important contacts, just to formally introduce Chloe and confirm the legitimacy of your union. We'll call it a celebration of marriage. It's non-negotiable, Julian. I need to protect the family's face in front of the board. Julian was immediately wary. Mom, we talked about this. No fuss. No performance. This is not fuss, Julian. It's damage control, I insisted, softening my tone just enough to manipulate. Think of it as a small, mandatory cocktail reception for your career. I'll keep the guest list discreet. No Harringtons, I promise. Just come. It's 2 hours of your life. Do this for me, Julian. As your mother. He finally relented, sighing heavily. Fine. But Chloe gets to choose the music and the flowers, and there are absolutely no speeches. And you have to promise to be nice to her, Mom. Genuinely nice. I will be the perfect hostess, Julian. I always am, I promised, already spinning a complex web of logistics in my head. I immediately called my social planner, instructing her to book the Greenwich Country Club ballroom. 100 important people could easily stretch to 200, and intimate was a matter of perspective. The day of the celebration arrived. I was meticulous. The champagne was French, the canapés were exquisite, and the lighting was designed to make every woman look 10 years younger. I was dressed in a simple, but blindingly expensive gown, ready to present my salvaged son and his new, rough-around-the-edges wife. Chloe, predictably, refused my offer of a borrowed gown. She arrived in a simple, navy blue satin dress she had bought herself, elegant, but utterly lacking in the necessary sparkle for a grand ballroom. She looked like a guest, not the guest of honor. I forced myself to be gracious, introducing her to influential men and their wives. I watched her closely. She was polite, engaged, and surprisingly charming. She didn't flatter or fawn. When an elderly venture capitalist asked her what she did, she simply replied, "I help people connect with stories in a public library." She was unapologetic about her humble work. However, the resistance began quickly. I introduced her to Mrs. Du Bois, a major donor to the city's art museum. "Chloe is an artist, Amelia. Perhaps you can introduce her to the right circles," I prompted, trying to force a connection. Chloe smiled sweetly, cutting off the conversation before it could begin. "That's kind of you, Mrs. Du Bois, but I prefer to keep my art separate from the social scene. My work is very personal, and I prefer to exhibit it in smaller, community-focused spaces." Another polite, firm rejection of my world. The evening was a series of subtle resistances. When I tried to move her to a more prominent position for a photo, she slipped away to chat with a less influential, but clearly interesting, couple. When I asked her about her choice of music, a list of obscure, joyful jazz artists, she explained that it was music for dancing, not for polite conversation. I spent the entire event desperately trying to steer the ship back on course, but the ship kept drifting toward the Bohemian shore Chloe represented. Julian, oblivious to my struggle, stayed firmly by Chloe's side, laughing and touching her arm, looking incredibly comfortable and proud. As the evening wound down, I realized my attempt to throw a post-wedding reception was a total failure. I hadn't reclaimed control. I had merely provided a stage for Chloe's quiet, powerful rebellion. My desperate attempt to live the life I thought I should through Julian had only highlighted the emptiness of my own choices. The UN-lived life was haunting me, and the woman who represented everything I had denied myself was now my daughter-in-law. A week after the failed celebration of marriage, the tension between Chloe and me was taut and palpable. Julian, trying to mitigate the situation, suggested a regular Sunday family dinner, insisting we all needed to find a way to coexist. I agreed, seeing another opportunity to observe and, perhaps, subtly correct Chloe's deficiencies. The Sunday dinner was held in our casual sitting room, a room that contained a mix of comfortable, oversized furniture and several valuable, though minor, family artifacts. On a small mahogany side table sat a delicate porcelain statuette, a small Dresden shepherdess. It wasn't worth a fortune, but it had been a gift from Julian's great-grandmother, a symbol of the Vance family's continuity. Chloe, bless her oblivious heart, was trying to make conversation with Robert, my stoic and perpetually distant husband. She was asking him about his garden, a subject he rarely discussed. Robert, surprisingly, seemed marginally engaged, even offering a rare, small smile. I watched this unexpected connection with suspicion. Chloe was bypassing my defenses and connecting with my family on an authentic, non-financial level. I had been holding a fragile piece of my grandmother's china, a teacup, trying to make a point about the importance of care and tradition. You see, Chloe, these items require a certain respect. They are more than just objects, they hold the weight of generations. You have to handle them with the knowledge that they are irreplaceable. Chloe listened patiently, nodding. I understand, Mrs. Vance. Like a very old book, you handle it with reverence. I keep my clay studio separate from my house for a similar reason, to protect my work and keep the mess contained. I was about to respond when Julian, demonstrating an utterly common lack of care, leaned across the small side table to grab a magazine. As he did, his elbow nudged the table just enough. The small Dresden shepherdess wobbled, caught the edge of a coaster, and, with a sickening clink, tumbled off the table and shattered into dozens of white pieces on the polished wooden floor. An absolute, chilling silence descended. Julian looked horrified. Robert's small smile instantly vanished, replaced by his usual grim mask. And I, for a moment, couldn't breathe. It wasn't the expense, it was the symbolism. The delicate figure of tradition, broken on my floor. Before anyone could move, Chloe, who was nearest to the wreckage, knelt down immediately. Julian was about to follow, but I stopped him with a sharp, involuntary gasp. Don't touch it. I commanded, my voice strained. You'll cut yourself. Julian, get the dustpan. Chloe, however, ignored me. She carefully began picking up the larger pieces, her brow furrowed in concentration. She picked up a larger piece and held it. Oh, that's terrible. It's a beautiful glaze, Mrs. Vance. I'm so sorry. I know how much heirlooms mean. I felt a cold rage bubbling up. You are sorry? You are sorry that your husband, in his rush to read an article that is likely about his own inflated ego, has destroyed a piece of my family history. I couldn't help but see the broken statuette as a metaphor for the broken engagement and the chaos she had brought into our controlled environment. It was my fault. Julian immediately interjected, standing stiffly. I was careless, Mom. It has nothing to do with Chloe. It has everything to do with Chloe. I finally exploded, the months of frustration, humiliation, and thwarted control erupting in a torrent of accusation. I stepped closer to the kneeling woman. She represents carelessness, Julian. She represents an utter disregard for the past, for history, for structure. You chose a woman who lives in a world of casual disregard, and now, that world has infiltrated my home and shattered something irreplaceable. Chloe looked up at me from the floor, her expression hurt, but not defensive. Mrs. Vance, I truly am sorry, but that's an unfair generalization. I treat everything I value with respect. This was an accident. Accidents happen when you surround yourself with people who don't understand consequence. I shot back, past the point of rational control. Olivia would never have allowed Julian to be so careless. She understood the value of objects, of symbols, of the importance of not bringing chaos into a stable home. You are an irresponsible, selfish child who stole my son's future because you didn't want the fuss of a proper life. Julian rushed to her side, pulling her gently to her feet. That's enough, Mom. You are being irrational and cruel. It was a $500 piece of porcelain. And yes, it was an accident. And you are right, she is different from Olivia. She's real. And I love her. And I am sick to death of you treating her like a virus. Chloe held Julian's hand, her eyes on mine. Mrs. Vance, I respect your anger, but you're confusing the object with the emotion. I will glue it back together for you, or I will buy you one that is similar, or I will make you a new one. But you cannot blame me for an accident that Julian caused, simply because you don't like where I come from. You can't glue history back together, Chloe. And you certainly can't make one that replaces the sentiment. I said, my voice cracking with the finality of the disaster. Robert, who had watched the entire exchange silently, finally stirred. Eleanor, he said, his voice flat. It was Julian's fault. Let it go. My husband's defense of our son and his strange new wife was the final indignity. I felt completely isolated. I am not letting it go. I will never let this go, I stated firmly, turning on my heel and walking out of the room, leaving the broken pieces, the angry son, the confused wife, and the silent husband in the debris of my shattered control. I retreated to my bedroom, slamming the door. The sound echoed the shatter of the shepherdess and, perhaps, the final shattering of my ability to control Julian's life. The family dinner was over, and the only certainty was that the schism between me and my son's wife had widened into an impassable canyon. After the shepherdess incident, the battle lines were clearly drawn, though the warfare shifted to a more subtle, passive-aggressive front. I decided that if I couldn't change Chloe's personal aesthetic, I would change her professional status. She wouldn't submit to my social world, but perhaps she would appreciate an elevation in her career, a step up from the quaint world of public libraries and unprofitable pottery. My network was vast, and I leveraged it. Within a week, I secured 2 seemingly perfect, high-profile opportunities for Chloe. The first was an interview for a prestigious curatorial assistant position at a major downtown art gallery, a role that paid 6 figures and involved managing corporate collections, a definite improvement from her messy studio. The second was an offer to teach a high-level literature seminar at a renowned private school, a position that came with immediate social cachet. I called Julian and Chloe to my home under the pretense of a peace-offering tea. I had prepared the elegant tea service, complete with delicate sandwiches and scones, projecting an air of maternal benevolence. I presented the opportunities as if they were a great gift, expecting gratitude and compliance. Chloe, my dear, I've been thinking about your, professional fulfillment. I began, carefully avoiding the word salary or status. It's simply not suitable for Julian's wife to be shelving books. So, I took the liberty of arranging a wonderful interview at the Renwick Gallery. It's a position of genuine cultural importance, not just a community service role. Think of the exposure. Chloe took a tiny sip of her tea, her expression unreadable. That's very thoughtful of you, Mrs. Vance. But I've already declined the interview. I appreciate the offer, but it's not for me. I felt my eyebrows fly up in genuine surprise. Declined? But you haven't even spoken to them. This is a chance to step into the New York art world. It's what everyone strives for, Chloe. You could eventually be hosting galas, running auctions. And leaving my library patrons behind, I suppose? Chloe asked, gently. My job is important to me, Mrs. Vance. I help people, of all ages and backgrounds, find comfort and knowledge in books. I run a children's reading hour that I love. The Renwick position sounds like it's about selling art to the elite, not nurturing it in the community. That's Julian's world, not mine. I quickly shifted to the second option, trying to conceal my frustration. Very well, but the private school position, the literature seminar? That's still intellectual and respectable. You can teach future leaders. That's a noble calling, Chloe. I teach for free at a community center twice a week, Mrs. Vance. And I prefer teaching people who actually need the knowledge to get ahead, Not those who already have every advantage handed to them, Chloe replied, her tone remaining impossibly polite, yet utterly uncompromising. I also don't want a job that dictates my schedule so strictly. I need time for my pottery studio. The pottery studio that makes you barely enough to pay for your clay? I asked, unable to contain my exasperation. Chloe, you are married to Julian Vance. You don't need a job, but if you insist on working, it must be something that complements Julian's standing. You're sacrificing real opportunities for a hobby. It's not a hobby, it's my passion. It's what gives me peace and identity outside of being Julian's wife, Chloe argued, setting her teacup down precisely. And I don't believe I need to be a corporate curator to complement Julian's standing. I believe my happiness and independence are the best complements to his success. If I'm well-adjusted and joyful, he is better off. He agrees, by the way. Julian, who had been sitting in stoic silence, finally spoke up, reinforcing her statement. She's right, Mom. She is the calm in my storm. I don't want her to change. I married her because she wasn't another corporate accessory. I felt a chilling sense of my influence slipping away entirely. Julian, my once obedient son, was now openly and confidently aligning with his wife's values, rejecting the very principles I had raised him on. Chloe wasn't waging a war of direct confrontation, she was waging a quiet rebellion of non-participation. So, you reject the Vance lifestyle entirely? I challenged, leaning in, my voice dangerously low. I reject the pressure of the Vance lifestyle, Chloe clarified gently. I love Julian, and I love coming here for dinner. You have a beautiful home. But I will not trade my integrity and my freedom for a title or a salary I don't need. I'm happy to be Mrs. Julian Vance, but I will remain Chloe Hayes, the artist. The sheer stubbornness of her quiet resistance was baffling. She was refusing the golden handcuffs with a simple, genuine smile. I realized that my power, the power of money and social leverage, was completely useless against a woman who genuinely didn't care about either. She was immune to my tactics. The rest of the tea was strained. I tried to pivot to discussing their future home, offering to buy them a stunning loft apartment in Manhattan. Chloe again politely deflected, saying they were perfectly happy in Julian's current, modest townhouse. Every avenue of my control was systematically, quietly, and politely shut down. As they stood to leave, I felt the sharp sting of defeat. Chloe gave me a brief, warm hug, a gesture that felt both genuine and entirely too familiar. I stiffened, barely returning the embrace. Thank you for the tea, Mrs. Vance. And thank you for thinking of my career. But I'm quite happy being exactly where I am, Chloe said, smiling confidently. Watching them walk away, Julian's arm casually wrapped around her waist, I recognized the profound change in my son. He was liberated. And the woman who had liberated him was also the woman who was slowly, inexorably, stripping me of my purpose. Chloe Hayes was not a threat to my social standing, she was a threat to my identity as a mother and a planner. I had to find the root of this profound disaffection Julian harbored, the one that made him choose the library over the ballroom. Chloe's unrelenting, cheerful independence finally forced me to look inward, a painful and humbling exercise I had avoided for years. The core of my battle with Chloe was no longer about her suitability for Julian, it was about Julian's deliberate rejection of the world I had created for him. I needed to understand why he was so willing to discard my life's work. I started by looking through old photographs in the attic, dusty albums that chronicled the meticulous planning of Julian's childhood. Every birthday, every graduation, every summer camp, all perfectly staged, perfectly recorded. I saw myself in the photos, elegant, always slightly detached, directing rather than participating. One photo, in particular, caught my attention. Julian, around the age of 12, standing on a dock during a summer vacation in Martha's Vineyard. He was holding a fishing pole, but his face was set in a scowl. Next to him, I was smiling brightly for the camera, holding a perfectly arranged basket of picnic provisions. I remembered that day clearly. Julian had wanted to spend the day fishing with the local dockmaster, a kind, grizzled old man. I had insisted he come to the yacht club's annual fundraiser instead, where he was required to wear a blazer and meet important business associates of his father. He had complied, of course, but the look on his face in the photo was a portrait of silent, resentful obedience. It suddenly hit me. Julian hadn't just rejected the wedding, he was rejecting decades of carefully managed moments. Every choice I had ever made for him, his school, his university major, his first job, his fiancée, was a choice made with my own ambition, not his happiness, as the driving force. He was a piece of architecture, designed by me, and he had finally knocked down the walls. I realized my need for control stemmed directly from my own upbringing. My family had been financially unstable and emotionally erratic. I found security only when I learned to impose rigid structure on my environment. Marrying Robert, a man as structured as I was, simply reinforced this defensive mechanism. I had spent my entire adult life planning for the next social gain, terrified of returning to the chaos of my youth. My memory drifted to the day Julian told me he wanted to study architecture, not finance. I had dismissed it instantly, presenting him with a spreadsheet showing the comparative long-term earning potential. Architecture is a lovely hobby, darling. Finance is a career. Vances are financiers. He never mentioned architecture again, but his passion died that day, and I had killed it. I decided to talk to Robert. Our marriage was one of mutual respect and social utility, not emotional intimacy. We communicated through schedules and financial reports. But for the first time in years, I needed my husband to be a father, not a partner in social crime. I found Robert in the library, reading a rare first edition. "Robert, we need to talk about Julian," I said, closing the book on the desk to get his attention, an act he usually found infuriating. He looked up, annoyed. "Eleanor, what is it? Did the market take a turn? Or is this about the broken statuette again?" "It's about Julian's happiness. Or the lack thereof, until now," I said, meeting his gaze. "He didn't elope because he's impulsive. He eloped because he hates our expectations. He chose Chloe because she represents everything we are not: freedom, simplicity, authenticity." Robert removed his reading glasses and stared at me. "Of course he hates our expectations. I hated my father's expectations. You just managed to impose them with more flair. What's your point, Eleanor? You wanted him to be a successor. He is a successor. The woman he married is irrelevant to the quarterly returns." "But it's not irrelevant. He's marrying a librarian instead of the daughter of a senator. That shows utter contempt for our values," I argued, my voice tight. Robert leaned back, a rare, thoughtful expression crossing his face. "Eleanor, Julian is 35. He is making his own choices. You suffocated him with perfection. You removed every spontaneous joy from his life because it didn't fit your grand project. Chloe is his rebellion. And frankly, she's a good one. She's kind. She's smart. She just doesn't care about our tax bracket." His blunt assessment stung far more than any of Chloe's subtle deflections. Robert was rarely critical, but when he was, his words carried the weight of absolute truth. He had seen my control, and he had allowed it, but he had never endorsed the emotional cost. I only did it to protect him, to give him stability. I whispered, the defensiveness crumbling. "You did it to protect yourself, Eleanor," Robert corrected gently. "You built the highest walls because you were afraid. But the walls trapped Julian inside. Now he's found a way out. Stop trying to drag him back." I walked out of the library, leaving Robert to his book. His words resonated painfully. She is his rebellion. The secret history of Julian's resentment was now laid bare, and I realized that to win Julian back, I had to stop fighting Chloe and start fighting the person I had become, a controlling mother who confused love with logistics. The true battle was not with my daughter-in-law, but with my own reflection. The only way to truly understand the enemy, I decided, was to walk their ground. I couldn't accept Julian's happiness with Chloe until I could see what she offered that my world didn't. This meant visiting the local public library where she worked, a place I hadn't set foot in since Julian was a small boy and required picture books. I drove my Bentley, an ostentatious beacon of wealth, into the modest, slightly neglected parking lot of the Stamford Public Library. I waited until after 5, when the workday crowd had thinned out. The building itself was brick, utilitarian, and smelled faintly of dust and old paper, a stark contrast to the leather and polish of my world. I walked in, feeling instantly out of place in my expensive leather coat and heels. The place was surprisingly busy, mostly older people reading newspapers and teenagers huddled over laptops. I found Chloe behind the main desk, not wearing her usual comfortable clothes, but a simple, practical apron with a few stray paint or clay smudges on it. She saw me immediately and her eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly composed herself. "Mrs. Vance? What a surprise. Is everything all right? Did Julian send you?" "Everything is perfectly fine, Chloe. I was just in the area and realized I needed to renew my library card," I lied smoothly, pulling a silk scarf tighter around my neck. "I didn't have a library card. I bought books, and I certainly didn't renew anything." Chloe, to her credit, didn't question the absurdity of the statement. "Of course. We can certainly get you one. But I'm just finishing up my shift. Would you like to wait for me? I'm helping the teen reading circle wrap up." I hesitated, but my mission required observation. "Very well. I'll wait," I agreed, taking a seat on a surprisingly comfortable, if worn, armchair near the magazine rack. I watched Chloe in action. She wasn't just stamping books, she was interacting. She sat with a group of 4 teenagers who were discussing a dystopian novel. She didn't lecture them or correct their slang, she simply guided the discussion, asking insightful questions that encouraged them to think deeper. "But what do you think the author was saying about power, Liam? Is it that power corrupts, or that it just reveals who you truly are?" she asked one boy, whose headphones were draped around his neck. The boy, who had been sullen, suddenly lit up and engaged in a passionate debate. I was struck by her patience, her genuine interest, and her ability to make 4 sullen teenagers feel important and intellectually valued. She wasn't managing a portfolio, she was managing potential. Next, an older woman approached the desk, looking distressed. "Chloe, dear, I can't find the new mystery by Ms. Evans, and I was really looking forward to it. I've checked everywhere." Chloe didn't direct her to a computer, she went around the desk. "Let's go find it together, Margaret. Sometimes they are still on the returns cart. We'll hunt it down." She walked slowly with the woman, chatting easily about her cat. The warmth and care she showed were completely foreign to the transactional relationships that dominated my own life. I watched Chloe for almost an hour, observing her natural, effortless integration into this small, diverse community. She wasn't vying for status or leveraging connections, she was simply contributing value. She belonged here. She was loved here. Her work was meaningful. It was a sharp, uncomfortable contrast to my own existence. My work was endless committee meetings, charity galas where the goal was to be seen, and the perpetual, exhausting effort to maintain a facade of perfection. I was respected, but was I loved by my community in the way Chloe clearly was by hers? The answer was a painful, resounding no. When her shift finally ended, she came over, shrugging on her leather tote bag. "Ready, Mrs. Vance? I can help you with that library card now." "It's all right, Chloe," I said, rising slowly. "I seem to have forgotten my driver's license. I'll come back another time." I paused, searching for the right words, something honest, not manipulative. "You're very good at your job. You have a real connection with people here." Chloe smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you, Mrs. Vance. It's what I love. I get to see the best of people when they come here. They're looking for answers, for escape, for knowledge. It's a wonderful, real place." As I walked out, the smell of old paper and the quiet hum of the community seemed to follow me. I drove the Bentley back to Greenwich, my world of manicured lawns and silent obedience suddenly feeling sterile and cold. I had come to investigate the woman who stole my son, and instead, I had found a quiet sanctuary where Julian had finally been able to breathe. My prejudices were shaken, and the foundation of my absolute certainty began to crack. Julian's work demanded he travel frequently, and a month after my library visit, he was called away to Asia for a critical 2-week merger negotiation. I saw his departure as an opportunity, a chance to intensify my subtle campaign, or perhaps, to finally understand the woman who was now the center of his universe. The universe, naturally, had other ideas. The weather turned violent. A sudden, unexpected nor'easter ripped through Connecticut, knocking out power across the state, including at Julian and Chloe's modest, but still lovely, townhouse. Julian called me from Tokyo, stressed, and asked the unimaginable, "Mom, can Chloe stay at the estate for a few days? I don't want her freezing alone in the dark." I couldn't refuse. It was an act of humanity, and despite my frustrations, I was still a mother who cared about her son's wife, even if she was the wrong wife. I agreed, and Chloe arrived an hour later, looking tired and carrying a battered backpack, not a designer suitcase. The house was eerily silent without Julian. The staff had gone home due to the storm, leaving only Robert and me, and now Chloe. Robert, predictably, retreated to his study with a flashlight and a bottle of expensive whiskey, leaving Chloe and me marooned together in the cavernous, unlit living room. We sat on opposite ends of the same sofa, illuminated only by the flickering light of the marble fireplace I had personally designed. The silence was thick, charged with the full weight of our mutual dislike and Julian's absence. Finally, Chloe spoke, her voice surprisingly soft against the roar of the wind outside. "It's beautiful here, Mrs. Vance. Really beautiful. The silence is profound." "It's usually not silent. Julian is usually here, talking about his endless deals," I replied stiffly, unwilling to cede ground. "I know. He calls me 3 times a day, even when he has to wake up at 3 a.m., she said, smiling faintly at the fire. "He worries so much about disappointing people. He worries about the markets, about his father's expectations, and about your schedule." Her casual mention of Julian's stress I had always assumed was a natural part of ambition, forced me to confront my role in it. Julian thrives on pressure. He always has. It's what makes him successful. He performs well under pressure, yes. But thriving is different, Chloe countered gently. When we're at home, we leave the pressure at the door. He needs that space, Mrs. Vance. He needs to just be Jules sometimes, not Julian Vance, the future of the firm. I looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time outside of my own judgmental lens. She wasn't lecturing me, she was simply stating a fact she had learned through genuine intimacy with my son. A new topic arose naturally. The fire crackled, and I sighed, a long, weary sound I hadn't realized I was capable of making. "I hate this cold, impersonal house," I admitted, the admission slipping out entirely against my will. "It's too large. Too many rooms, too few people." Chloe looked at me with an unexpected flash of empathy. "I know what you mean. My childhood home was a tiny, brightly painted cottage. My parents were always yelling, not because they were angry, but because they were too close together. But I miss the noise, too. The constant presence. Julian's father and I haven't had a genuine conversation in probably 15 years, I confessed, the words tasting like rust. Our marriage is a well-managed corporation. We maintain the assets, we attend the mandatory meetings. That's all." Chloe nodded, her gaze fixed on the fire. My mother and father divorced when I was young because they were too volatile. Too much passion, too much conflict. They couldn't survive the intimacy. Julian and I have a quiet kind of peace. It's not volatile, but it's real. In that shared moment of vulnerability, we had an accidental, tenuous truce. We were two women, sitting in the dark, both defining our lives by the ghost of a happy home, a home I had failed to create and she had finally achieved with my son. We were both seeking the same thing, emotional security. Suddenly, a massive oak tree outside the living room window gave way under the strain of the ice, hitting the house with a terrifying crack and plunging the room into total darkness. I yelped, startled, my fragile composure instantly shattered. "It's okay. It's just a tree," Chloe exclaimed immediately, her voice strong and completely calm. She immediately reached for my hand in the darkness, a comforting, firm grip. I hate the dark," I confessed, surprised by the juvenile fear in my voice. "I know," Chloe replied, still holding my hand. "It's all right. I have a tiny flashlight in my bag. Hold still." She released my hand, rummaged in her backpack, and produced a small, utilitarian flashlight, which cast a weak beam around the room. She didn't like the expensive antique lamps. She shone the light on the fireplace, emphasizing the only genuine warmth in the room. We sat there for another half hour, not talking, just sharing the silence and the flickering light. The physical act of holding my hand, her steady, calm presence in the face of the sudden chaos, was disarmingly comforting. I realized that this was what Julian loved, her effortless ability to be the calm in the storm, the genuine light in the meticulously planned darkness. When Robert finally emerged from the study, drawn by the silence, he found us sitting together, side by side, bathed in the firelight. He simply raised an eyebrow, a silent acknowledgement of the unexpected intimacy. "I think I'll go to bed now, Robert," I announced, feeling exhausted but strangely lighter. I looked at Chloe. "Good night, Chloe. Thank you for the light." Chloe smiled, a true, kind smile. "Good night, Mrs. Vance. Sleep well." The shared silence, the accidental vulnerability, and the simple comfort of her hand had done more to bridge the gap between us than any planned lunch or charity event ever could. I had expected a fight. I had found a fellow human being. And that was far more dangerous to my hardened defenses. The power came back on the following morning, and with the return of electricity came the return of my focus. The vulnerability shared with Chloe felt like a temporary lapse, a moment of weakness I needed to overcome. However, the feeling of genuine connection lingered, compelling me to investigate not Chloe's character, but her history. I was still operating on the premise that Julian's choice was a deliberate rejection of my corporate world. I had to find a flaw in Chloe's past, something that proved she was fundamentally incompatible, or worse, morally compromised. I contacted a specialist investigator, tasking him with a deep dive into Chloe's entire family history, focusing on any financial or legal interactions. The report arrived via encrypted email late one Tuesday night. It was thorough, dry, and professional, detailing bank accounts, property deeds, and employment records. Everything was clean. Until the very last page. The final addendum concerned a small, local community fund in Chloe's hometown, a charity her father, the retired school administrator, had passionately supported. The fund was decimated 15 years ago by a poorly managed acquisition and subsequent liquidation of its primary real estate asset, a piece of land intended for a new school wing. The investigator noted the liquidation was handled by a massive, high-powered investment firm. He included a discreet mention of the subsidiary involved in the acquisition, a shell company managed by Vance and Partners. My blood ran cold. My family's investment firm, the very foundation of Julian's future and my entire existence, was directly responsible for the financial ruin of a community project near Chloe's home. This wasn't just a clash of social classes. This was a conflict of corporate ethics and personal integrity. Julian's firm, and by extension, Julian, was implicated in a past injustice that had directly impacted Chloe's community. I read the report over and over, the details sinking in like a heavy stone. The land acquisition was entirely legal, a standard, ruthless corporate maneuver to maximize return on a failing asset. But for Chloe and her father, it would have been a profoundly personal betrayal. The community lost a school. Vance and Partners made a significant, if small, profit. I immediately went to Robert's study, the report clutched in my trembling hand. He was on a conference call, his voice a low, commanding rumble. I waited, pacing the oriental rug, until he hung up, his expression already one of irritation at my intrusion. "What is it, Eleanor?" "I'm preparing for a morning meeting," he said, reaching for his schedule. I shoved the report in front of him, pointing a shaky finger at the name of the shell company. This. 15 years ago. The Stamford Community Fund. Vance and Partners liquidated their land acquisition. "Do you remember this, Robert?" Robert glanced at the page, his eyes narrowing. He was quiet for a long moment, scanning the dry legal jargon. "Ah, yes. A small, routine transaction. The asset was undervalued. We bundled it and sold it off for a nice premium. Why does this matter now?" "It matters because of Chloe. Her father ran that fund. His entire community project was destroyed by your firm," I exclaimed, dropping into the chair opposite him. "She didn't marry Julian for his money, Robert. She might have married him as an act of unconscious rebellion or, worse, for proximity to the enemy. This gives her a profound ethical reason to reject everything we stand for." Robert was unmoved, his corporate facade impenetrable. "It's business, Eleanor. It's what we do. We buy low, we sell high. If her family was involved, it's unfortunate, but entirely separate from Julian." "Is it, though? Julian works for that firm. He benefits from that ruthlessness. If Chloe knows this, she must see him, and us, as corrupt," I argued, trying to make him see the personal consequence of his cold, efficient business. Robert shrugged, a gesture of profound dismissal. "Then she needs to learn that the world operates on money, not sentiment. If Julian is truly happy, then this historical anomaly is irrelevant. Don't mention it to her, Eleanor. Don't stir up trouble." But I couldn't not stir up trouble. This discovery changed everything. It transformed Chloe's quiet rebellion from an aesthetic choice into a moral stand. Her rejection of my corporate gifts, my lavish expectations, and my entire worldview was now grounded in a legitimate, historical wrong perpetrated by the very foundations of my family's wealth. I looked at Robert, recognizing the absolute ethical vacuum in which he lived. And I realized, with a wave of sickening clarity, that I had been complicit in building this vacuum. I had never questioned the source of the wealth, only the social utility of the lifestyle it afforded. I sat there, the weight of the truth crushing me. Julian had chosen a woman with an inner compass so strong it rejected my world on sight, a world that, as it turned out, was built, in part, on injustice to her community. I had thought Chloe was a naive, simple girl. She was, in fact, an anchor for Julian, pulling him back toward something authentic and ethically sound. The confrontation with Robert had done little good, but it had accomplished something crucial. It shifted my focus. I no longer wanted to change Chloe. I wanted to understand how to live with this truth. I had to decide if I was willing to continue protecting the shell company's secret, or if I was finally ready to face the music and acknowledge the true ethical cost of the Vance legacy. The choice was clear. I couldn't ask Chloe to integrate into my life until I had made peace with the moral rot at the core of my own. The discovery of the Vance and Partners connection to Chloe's past was the turning point. It shattered the last of my defensive self-justifications. I was no longer fighting a war of status. I was facing a moral reckoning. For the first time, my careful planning was focused not on external appearances, but on internal change. I started by looking at my calendar, that meticulously scheduled document that defined my worth. It was filled with committee meetings, benefit luncheons, and philanthropic galas, all designed to maintain my relevance in the Greenwich hierarchy. I realized that 90% of these obligations were tedious, hollow, and served only my ego. I began what I called the pruning. I called the chairman of the Metropolitan Museum's Acquisitions Committee and resigned, citing a pressing need to focus on personal matters. The silence on the other end of the line was shocked. I then called the chairwoman of the annual winter ball and stepped down from the planning committee. The relief I felt was immediate and profound. My friends were baffled. My phone was inundated with confused and faintly accusatory messages. "Eleanor, you can't possibly miss the benefit. It's your signature event. Is everything all right? Are you ill?" I ignored them all. I was not ill. I was finally, profoundly, well. Robert noticed the change immediately. He found me one afternoon in the garden, wearing comfortable trousers, not tailored capris, and actually using gardening shears, pruning an overgrown rose bush with fierce concentration. "You're avoiding your obligations, Eleanor. The social calendar is falling apart," he observed, his voice tinged with disapproval. "The social calendar is a cage, Robert, and I'm trimming the bars," I replied, clipping a dead branch with satisfying force. I realized that the more I control my schedule, the more I drive Julian away. And frankly, the less I care for it myself. I then approached him with the ethical issue. "I need to talk to Julian about the shell company acquisition. He needs to know that his firm was responsible for the loss of Chloe's community fund." Robert's face tightened. "Absolutely not. It was a completely legitimate business transaction. It will only cause pain and jeopardize his marriage. Don't be foolish, Eleanor. Let sleeping dogs lie." "It's not about legal legitimacy, Robert, it's about moral legitimacy," I insisted. "Julian and Chloe built their marriage on honesty and simplicity. My refusal to acknowledge this injustice makes me a hypocrite. If I want to be a part of their lives, I have to stop protecting the firm's secrets and start protecting my family's integrity." Robert refused to budge, but I was resolved. I realized that my need to protect Julian had always manifested as control and secrecy. Now, I needed to show him love through honesty and acceptance. The first step was to acknowledge my own failures. I called Chloe and Julian and invited them over for a simple, non-confrontational dinner. No silver, no formal seating. Just the three of us in the kitchen. I cooked a simple roasted chicken, something I hadn't done myself in years, forcing myself to move slowly, deliberately. When they arrived, I waited until we were eating before speaking. "Julian, Chloe. I need to apologize," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "Not for the wedding planning, but for the fundamental way I've treated you both. I've been judging you, Chloe, not because of your background, but because of my own fear. I confused status with stability, and I forced my life onto you, Julian." Julian looked surprised, Chloe looked cautious. I took a deep breath. "I know about the Stamford Community Fund, Chloe. The land acquisition 15 years ago. Vance and Partners was involved. My firm was responsible for the liquidation that led to the fund's failure. I'm telling you this because I want to be honest. I want my relationship with you both to start from a place of truth, not corporate denial." Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. She looked at Julian, whose face was a mask of shock and dismay. He clearly hadn't known. "The shell company was before my time, Chloe," Julian said immediately, leaning across the table. "I had no idea. I am so deeply sorry. That's awful." Chloe looked back at me, her eyes filled with a new kind of scrutiny. "Why are you telling me this now, Mrs. Vance? To hurt me? To prove that your world is rotten?" "No," I replied honestly, shaking my head. "To prove that I am capable of change. I spent my life protecting this family's name through silence. That silence nearly cost me my son. The money is tainted, Chloe. I'm not denying it. But Julian isn't. And I hope to no longer be. I'm pruning the past and trying to grow something genuine. Julian immediately went to Chloe, holding her hand, apologizing for the firm's actions, and explaining that this was the first he had ever heard of the acquisition. The moment of truth, the moment of raw, uncomfortable honesty, had cleared the air in a way that all the polite lunches and society gatherings never could. Chloe didn't forgive me instantly, but she accepted my apology and the information. She saw my act of honesty as a genuine olive branch, a signal that I was finally willing to join their world of truth, rather than demand they join my world of facades. The pruning was painful, but the first shoots of a real, honest connection with my family were beginning to emerge. The confession about the Stamford Fund and the subsequent apology had created a fragile détente. The tension between Chloe and me hadn't disappeared, but it had morphed into a mutual, respectful caution. Julian, relieved by the transparency, started encouraging us to spend time together, albeit in a low-stakes, non-competitive environment. One rainy Saturday, Julian and Chloe invited me over to their townhouse for a casual dinner. I accepted, showing up in a respectable but comfortable cashmere sweater and slacks, a small victory for Chloe's anti-armor philosophy. The townhouse was cozy, filled with books, original art, and the earthy, comforting scent of Chloe's clay studio, which was tucked away in the small garage. After dinner, over cups of fragrant herbal tea, a sharp departure from my usual espresso, Chloe spoke hesitantly. "Mrs. Vance, I know you were hurt about missing the wedding, and I understand why. It was important to you. I thought, perhaps seeing these might help." She stood up and brought back a beautifully simple, linen-bound photo album. The cover was a soft, pale gray, with their names simply embossed in a small, modern font, Jules and Chloe. October 14th. I accepted the album, my hands suddenly feeling clumsy. This was the visual evidence of the life I had been shut out of, the antithesis of the society wedding I had dreamed of. I opened the cover, bracing myself for the shock of the mundane. The first photo was of Julian and Chloe, standing outside the grand, neoclassical City Hall building. Julian was in a sharp but simple navy suit. Chloe was in her dark green dress, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. They weren't surrounded by hundreds of guests. They were surrounded by smiling strangers. A passing woman and a sanitation worker had paused to clap for them. The photos that followed were a revelation. There were no expensive lighting rigs or carefully choreographed poses. They were candid, immediate, and overwhelmingly filled with joy. There was Julian, laughing so hard his eyes crinkled, as he helped Chloe climb onto a stone fountain for a photo. There was a close-up of their hands, their simple gold bands shining, with Julian's tie slightly askew and Chloe's fingers smudged with what looked like indelible ink from the municipal forms. One photo was particularly striking, a quiet moment right after the ceremony, taken in the back of a taxi. They were leaning their foreheads together, eyes closed, smiling a deep, contented smile. It was a picture of pure, unadulterated happiness. Julian's face, in that moment, was completely free of the corporate mask he wore every day. He looked 10 years younger, truly himself. I flipped the pages slowly, my heart aching not with jealousy, but with a profound, bittersweet regret. I hadn't wanted this for him because I couldn't imagine a life without the trappings of wealth. But seeing him like this, raw, simple, and utterly blissful, I realized my ambition had been a form of blindness. My way was not the only way, and in Julian's case, it was the wrong way. Chloe, sitting quietly beside me, spoke softly. We exchanged vows we wrote ourselves. We talked about having a quiet kind of peace for the rest of our lives. No grand gestures, just quiet commitment. "You look genuinely happy, Julian," I finally managed, my voice thick with emotion. I looked up at my son. "I've never seen that look on your face, not even when you closed your first major deal." Julian smiled, a true, easy smile. It's real, Mom. This is real. It's what I chose. I looked back down at the photo album, fixated on the close-up of their rings. The simplicity of the bands spoke volumes. They hadn't needed a 3-carat diamond or the senator's daughter. They had only needed each other. You didn't invite me, I stated, the old wound reopening, but without the sting of anger. We didn't invite anyone, Mom, Julian corrected gently. It wasn't a slight. We knew if we told you, you would have bought the venue, hired the staff, and had the guests lining up at City Hall with their designer hats. We needed one day that was just ours. I closed the album, my eyes slightly moist. I handed it back to Chloe. It's a beautiful record of a beautiful day, Chloe. Truly. I owe you both an apology for confusing the symbol with the substance. The marriage is the substance. The Ashworth estate was just a symbol. Chloe took the album, her face softening into a look of acceptance. Thank you, Mrs. Vance. That means a lot. Please, Chloe. After seeing this, call me Eleanor, I said, finally crossing that rigid line of formality. She smiled, and the tension that had lingered between us for months finally dissolved. Okay, Eleanor. Would you like to see my studio? I'm working on a set of ceramic bowls for the house. I spent the next hour in her small, messy, wonderful studio. I watched her hands, strong and creative, molding the clay. I asked questions about glazes and firing temperatures. I was fascinated by the creation of something tangible and beautiful, something that didn't rely on capital or consumption. I realized that Chloe, the antithesis of the Vance life, was teaching me the value of creation over acquisition. The wedding photos hadn't just documented a ceremony, they had fundamentally changed my perspective, finally allowing me to see and accept the true happiness of my son. The shift in our relationship, marked by the acceptance of the wedding photos and the use of first names, was profound. It wasn't instantaneous love, but it was a sturdy, cautious respect. I knew, however, that a simple apology wasn't enough. I needed to offer a genuine, non-patronizing gesture, a true olive branch that signaled my permanent change of approach. The opportunity arose when Julian casually mentioned a problem. Chloe's pottery studio, the garage, was becoming impossible to work in, especially with the approaching cold weather. He knew how much her art meant to her, and he wanted to find her a proper space, but every suitable building in Greenwich was prohibitively expensive or too remote. This was my chance. I saw it not as a gift of money, but as an investment in her happiness, which was, I now understood, Julian's happiness. I spent the next week, not calling social planners, but calling real estate contacts. I found a lovely, small carriage house on the back corner of the Vance estate property. It was unused, had excellent natural light, and was structurally separate from the main house, giving Chloe the privacy and independence she clearly valued. I had the carriage house cleaned, had the staff install proper heating and ventilation, and put down a beautiful, durable clay-friendly floor. I didn't choose the colors or the equipment. I simply created a perfect, blank, climate-controlled shell. I then commissioned a local carpenter, known for his bespoke cabinetry, to build a state-of-the-art kiln and custom shelving, built to Chloe's exact specifications, which I secretly gleaned from Julian. I called Chloe and Julian and asked them to meet me at the estate on a Friday afternoon. When they arrived, I didn't usher them into the main house. I led them directly to the carriage house. "What is this, Mom?" Julian asked, looking confused as I unlocked the beautiful, old wooden door. "This is my formal apology, Chloe," I announced, opening the door wide. Chloe stepped inside, and her hand immediately flew to her mouth. The room was bathed in soft afternoon light, clean, spacious, and filled with the scent of fresh wood. The gleaming new kiln sat ready in the corner, and the custom shelving lined the walls. It was a proper artist studio, a sanctuary. She turned to me, tears welling up in her eyes. "Eleanor, I don't know what to say. This is magnificent. But I can't accept something this large. It's too much. It's not too much, dear. It's a space where you can be Chloe Hayes, the artist, completely independently of Julian Vance, the financier, I said, gently but firmly. It's structurally separate from the main house. You have your own entrance, your own space, your own utilities. It's yours, Chloe, for as long as you need it. Julian, overwhelmed, hugged me fiercely. Mom, this is the most thoughtful thing you've ever done. Thank you. It means the world to us. I returned the hug, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Then, I stepped back and faced Chloe, knowing this was the critical moment. Chloe, this is my olive branch, but it comes with a condition, I stated, my tone returning to a serious, Eleanor Vance register. The condition is this: I apologize for everything I tried to force you to be. I apologize for the Prada dresses, the social calendar, the expectations. I was wrong. I was trying to save Julian from a future I thought he needed, and I was wrong about that, too. I will never patronize you again. I will never try to change your career or your clothing. You are perfect for my son exactly as you are. I paused, allowing the gravity of the statement to sink in. But, you must also set a boundary with me, clearly and honestly. If I ever lapse, if I ever try to give you unsolicited advice or push you into a social obligation, you must tell me, directly and without hesitation, Eleanor, you're controlling again. Can you agree to that? Chloe's eyes, still wet with emotion, held a flicker of her old defiance, but also profound understanding. She smiled. I accept the gift, Eleanor, and I accept the condition. I promise I will tell you. You are a natural planner, and I know it will be a difficult habit to break. She stepped forward and hugged me, a long, genuine embrace that was nothing like the stiff peck I had received months ago. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for seeing me. This is the only wedding present I'll ever need. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace that surpassed any satisfaction I had ever derived from a flawless gala or a successful committee meeting. The war was officially over. I had conceded defeat, and in doing so, I had won something far more valuable than a social victory: the respect and acceptance of my son's wife, and a genuine chance at being a mother-in-law, not a general. 6 months passed, and the rhythm of life in Greenwich settled into a new, comfortable cadence. Julian and Chloe moved into the carriage house for a few months while they waited for renovations on their townhouse, creating an unexpected, peaceful proximity. Chloe was utterly absorbed in her new studio, the kiln firing almost daily, and the earthy smell of clay now occasionally drifted up to the main house. My life, too, had fundamentally changed. My calendar was pruned to only essential, genuinely fulfilling commitments. I had taken up Italian lessons, not for social leverage, but because I truly wanted to visit Florence's art museums. I was still Eleanor Vance, poised and elegant, but the armor felt lighter, and my smiles were less practiced. The biggest change was the Friday evening dinner tradition. Instead of being a formal event, it had become a simple, relaxed gathering in my kitchen. Julian and Chloe would often arrive with a bottle of wine and a freshly baked loaf of bread. We talked about art, books, Julian's less stressful work life, and occasionally, Robert even joined us, shedding his stoicism for brief, genuine moments of connection. The conversation one evening, however, took a turn back to the past. Eleanor, Chloe began, swirling her wine, I know you never got to throw the reception you wanted. I've been thinking about it a lot. And I'd really like to have a party. A small one. I felt a familiar spark of panic, but I quickly suppressed it. A party? Are you sure? You always said you hated the fuss. I do. But I want to celebrate the family, not the society, she clarified, smiling. I want to throw a housewarming party at the carriage house, a tiny reception. But I want you to plan it. Not the guest list or the food, but the feeling. I want you to do what you do best, make things beautiful and meaningful. This was the ultimate olive branch, an invitation back into the planning process, but this time, under her rules and for her purposes. My planning would serve her vision, not mine. The party was set for a Sunday afternoon in early spring. The guest list was small: Chloe's parents, Julian's few close friends, Robert, and me. There were no senators or major donors. The menu was simple: artisanal cheeses, local wine, and a cake that Chloe and I made together. A messy, joyful process that involved more flour on my Chanel blazer than I cared to admit. My role was to manage the aesthetics and the flow, a task I executed with newfound joy. I decorated the carriage house with simple garlands of fresh greenery and lit dozens of candles. I ensured the lighting was warm and welcoming, and the music, Chloe's jazz, was playing softly. I even made a small, beautiful display of Chloe's pottery, allowing her passion to be the star of the event. When the guests arrived, the atmosphere was genuinely joyful. Chloe, radiant in a soft yellow dress, introduced her warm, slightly bohemian parents to Robert and me. There were no business discussions, no posturing. Just laughter, good food, and the easy chatter of two families coming together. I watched Chloe, my daughter-in-law, my former nemesis, look at Julian with an expression of pure, contented love. I looked at Julian, who introduced me to his father-in-law with an ease and pride I had rarely seen before. He was finally whole, and I, too, felt a sense of completion. Toward the end of the evening, Julian raised a glass, not for a formal speech, but for a simple toast. To my wife, Chloe, for bringing light, simplicity, and a little bit of beautiful chaos into my life. And to my mother, Eleanor, for finally letting go and accepting the beautiful chaos. My eyes filled with tears, and I raised my glass. I was no longer the grand planner, the society matriarch, or the controller. I was Eleanor, the mother-in-law, a woman who had finally learned to trade the illusion of perfection for the reality of family. As the sun set, casting a warm golden glow over the carriage house, I looked at the beautifully simple setting, the mismatched family, and the genuine happiness in my son's eyes. The grand project had failed, but a much better, more beautiful chapter had begun, one that was still unwritten, and one I was finally ready to live, not just plan. I realized that my life was now imperfect, honest, and infinitely better than the perfectly constructed facade I had spent decades trying to maintain.